Welcome to Democracy-ish. I'm Danielle Moodie.
And I'm Wajahat, and hopefully Trump administration won't deport me for my evil, bad thought crimes, where I think their cruelty is no bueno, and their tariff policy is no bueno, and their pro-measles stance is no bueno. But let's see, folks, the day is young, and it's only 12 p.m. on Friday.
You know, every time that we get to Democracy-ish on Fridays, I feel like I am a cartoon clawing my way up the cliff, like that I have gone over, and I'm just like here, just, barely. And with all the scrapes and bruises of the week. So I'm sorry, friends, if you feel the same way that we do, but we are happy that you are here with us to run down all the happenings of this week. So Waj mentioned thought crimes, and you think it's a joke, but it's not.
That is kind of scary that Light Wolf thought of me when a lawyer was detained. But thank you, Light Wolf. That's kind of you for that empathy. My wife also sent that to me, and she's like, I'm like, yo, why is everyone sending this to me? But yep, that's where we are, folks. At least people care.
Yeah. Ahmed Makel.
I think so. Yeah, a pro-Palestinian lawyer coming back, and they said, give us your phone. Open it up for us. He refused to open it up, but they took the phone anyway and they detained him. There you go. But then thankfully he was released. But U.S. citizen. Doesn't matter anymore, folks. Who cares?
Speaking of who cares, so ICE decided to post on their broke down social media platform X a message. And not just, and I want people to understand, not just a message to those who are undocumented, but a message to everyone in America.
Mm-hmm.
If it crosses the U.S. border illegally, it is our job to stop it. People, money, products, ideas. What?
People, money, product, ideas. How do you stop an idea from crossing? And last time I checked, in the United States of America, Danielle, please correct me if I'm wrong, we have this robust First Amendment where even if we loathe your ideas, as long as you're not breaking the law, you can have those ideas. In fact, I recall, Danielle, that the KKK, a former domestic terrorist group, and Nazis are able to organize, post, and have the power of assembly and march in these United States of America. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe it was a dream.
No, it wasn't. And the thing is, the fact that you said robust, it isn't robust. As a matter of fact, our ability to have free press, free thought, those things are quite porous. And the idea that now we are in a place of 1984 or Minority Report, if you like a more recent film, that these are thought crimes. And if you think that ICE is playing around, well, we give you this. Mahmoud Khalil, one of the first students from Columbia University and first people to be picked up by this new Gestapo ICE force. Guess what, folks? The only argument that the government has for deporting Mahmoud Khalil is that he engaged in a thought crime. So let me just read you this briefly. Facing a deadline for an immigration judge to turn over evidence for its attempted deportation of Columbia University activist Mahmoud Khalil, the federal government has instead submitted a brief memo signed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, citing that the Trump administration's authority to expel non-citizens whose presence in the country damage U.S. foreign policy interests. The two-page memo, which was obtained by the Associated Press, does not allege any criminal conduct by Khalil, a legal permanent U.S. resident and graduate student who served as a spokesperson for campus activists last year during the large demonstrations against Israel's treatment of Palestinians and war in Gaza. Rather, Rubio wrote Khalil would be expelled for his beliefs. He said that while Khalil's activities were, quote, otherwise lawful, letting him remain in the country would undermine, quote, U.S. policy to combat anti-Semitism around the world and in the United States, in addition to efforts to protect Jewish students from harassment and violence in the U.S. Condoning anti-Semitic conduct and disruptive protests in the United States would severely undermine that significant foreign policy objective.
Let's just unravel it from the back to the front. First and foremost, the most anti-Semitic administration in modern history, which says that, there were very fine people on both sides, in which Donald Trump dined with Nick Fuentes, one of the leading white nationalist young men leaders who was also a Holocaust denier, where they openly had a Nazi salutes by Elon Musk. They now want to tell the world, especially Jews, that they care about Jews. Jews know that they don't, which is why an overwhelming majority of Jewish men and women, voted for Kamala Harris. They're using Jews as a Trojan horse, as a battering ram to attack our what? Free speech, our liberties, to undermine universities and go after pro-Palestinian activists, which is why many Jews are like, not in our name. Even those Jews, the right-wing type of Zionist pro-Israel ones, are like, whoa, slow your roll. Furthermore, in the United States of America, do you all recall J.D. Vance a few weeks ago went to Europe and lectured them about the First Amendment and said, you need to follow America and have more free speech. Remember that, Danielle? Mm-hmm. And while he was doing that, Elon Musk, the same man who did the Nazi salute, wanted to jail the 60 Minutes producers because he didn't like a segment. Well, all that's happening. And what we've been saying is Mahmoud Khalil committed 0 crimes. If he committed crimes, show the evidence. He's been charged with 0 crimes. Nonetheless, because this administration doesn't like him, they picked him up, detained him. He's thousands of miles away from his pregnant wife, a U.S. citizen wife in Louisiana, saying, hey, what did I do wrong? And now, after being pressed again and again and again for weeks to show any evidence of any crimes, remember they said he was connected to Hamas? Okay, yep. Prove it. Nope. Now they say, we don't have to. We, with the power vested in us and in our interpretation of the laws, have the power to remove you if we think you are a threat to our foreign policy based on your thoughts and ideas. And the last thing I'll say, who is a bigger threat to U.S. foreign policy? Mahmoud Khalil, a pro-Palestinian activist who has committed 0 crimes, who was very deliberate and lawful. You can disagree with him and his opinions and thoughts on Israel if you want, but was he more dangerous and more destructive to America? Or, I don't know, Donald Trump's horrific trade war and tariff policy that has risen the price of eggs and destroyed our alliances and dunked the S&P 500. You tell me.
I won't even go to Trump yet. I will say, or who is more dangerous? Kyle Rittenhouse, who they had centered at the Republican National Convention, who committed murder and killed 2 people at a Black Lives Matter protest, and they hailed that man as a hero, a 17-year-old at the time, a 17-year-old murderer. So you have to think about who it is that this administration. It was the person who was kicked out of the Navy SEALs for going against their rules and regulations and committing murder. Guess who received a pardon from Donald Trump? That Navy SEAL. They're looking into potentially dropping federal charges against who? Derek Chauvin. What did Derek Chauvin do? Murder George Floyd in broad daylight. So they want to lie to you and tell you that thinking is a crime, but committing actual murder so long that the people that are on the other side of the AR-15 are Black and brown, those are the real heroes and patriots. And this type of shit This type of double talk, double speak bullshit that has an innocent man, several, probably now hundreds of innocent people being detained for doing nothing other than exercising the rights that our Constitution affords them, whether or not you are a citizen of these United States. Because if you are on our soil, you are afforded, right, the rights and responsibilities granted under our Constitution. And this administration is saying no.
Fifth Amendment. Fifth Amendment. We are a country of due process, right? Innocent until proven guilty. Remember, isn't that what they said about Donald Trump? He's innocent until proven guilty. All those criminal charges, all by the deep state, yada, yada, yada. Civility for me, cruelty for you. Laws for me, lawlessness for you. Safe spaces for me, no safe spaces for you. I get to punch you and mock you and ridicule you and say what I want. I get to use the R word now. You hear that quote from that broker?
From the
I get to
Financial
use
Times,
the R word now, and I could use the B word for women. I could use the F word for gays, and I could do this. I'm free. No consequences, right? My appetite is voracious. I could do what I want. But you better bend the knee. You better think the way I want you to think. You better speak the way I want you to speak. You better kiss the ring, kiss our ass, or else. The world's most weak, fragile, insecure men personified by Elon Musk and Donald Trump were never, nothing is too much for them. It's all the adulation, still not enough. All the money, still not enough. All the power, still not enough. Broken, psychopathic narcissists who demand fealty and loyalty. And now in the United States of America, these same people, all the patriots who said, liberty, that's why I have like an arsenal of guns, because the deep state's going to come for my liberty. Oh, they're coming for your liberties? That's fine. I won't raise my arms for you, right? Folks, this is authoritarian Gestapo tactics. We're in it now. Danielle and I have been saying it. If you don't believe me, just read it. Read that. Can you put it back up for a second, Danielle? Just that happened last night, folks. Mahmoud Khalil. They said, show the evidence. They have zero evidence, and they're like, nah, we don't need the evidence. Nah, we think he's a threat. So he's detained. Rumeysa Ozturk, a Turkish grad student, legally here, kidnapped off the streets of Boston, Tufts University, flown thousands of miles away. Allegedly, Danielle also being detained in Louisiana. Her crime, co-writing an op-ed.
And just...
Oh, I just want to say hi to this troll. Benford's Law. Benford's Law, you're one of the best trolls. Thank you so much. I appreciate you on Twitter.
No.
I appreciate getting dunked on. I appreciate you always trolling me and people coming out and mocking you. So welcome and join our show.
So if you think that this is going to stop anytime soon, no. What Todd Lyons, the whatever he is, acting director of ICE.
There you go.
Has said most recently is that he wants to pick up the pace in efficiency as it pertains to deportations. And he compared the human beings that he wants to pick up, human beings, mothers, fathers, dad, uncles, aunts, teachers, caretakers. He compared them to Amazon Prime packages. He compared them to packages and said that we should treat deportation like a quote unquote business like Amazon Prime. And I don't know about you, Waj, but where I live, there are trucks all over the place, all over the street, all the time. Amazon Prime trucks. So much so now they have the electric ones that the drivers are pedaling, right? Because there are more packages, more, because we just over fucking consume everything. So he wants deportation to look like that, where there are just trucks driving around, kidnapping people off of the street, throwing them in the backs of vans and disappearing them. This is what the director of ICE has said. If that is not Nazism, if that is not like, this is the camps and we need to fill them up with as many people as possible, I don't know what is.
At first when I read that, I'm like, oh, that's just someone making an analogy. And then I read the quote and I'm like, oh, no, they actually said it out loud. Folks, they're saying it out loud. Me and Danielle have been using this analogy, the hoods are off, for about 2 years. The hoods are off. I remember, this is the world's worst I told you so. A couple of years ago on Twitter, I refused to call it X before a Nazi lover took it over. An alleged Nazi lover who allegedly did two Sig Heils that we all saw. I said that the Republican Party would go mainstream with white supremacist talking points by 2024, 2025. And I said, I hope I was wrong. Danielle, this is white supremacist talking points. My friend who does content moderation and who looks at data, and he specifically looks at hate mongers on Twitter. I was talking to him last night, and he looks at X under Musk, and he says Nazis are openly platforming their ideas. They're not hiding it anymore, Danielle. They're not using dog whistles. He's talking about actual Nazi groups promoting Nazi content and assembling on Twitter right now out in the open because they believe it's a free-for-all. He goes, I've never seen anything like this. And then you have the ICE director openly saying, one of our community members said this is like DoorDash for deportations. You're exactly right.
Correct.
You would think, yeah, that's correct. So, hey, I got a tip. There's this black woman. Her name is Danielle Moodie, but what's her real name? I think she's Jamaican. Hey, come check her out in wherever she lives. And next thing you know, knock, knock, knock. We've heard reports. Now you think, Waj, you are being hyperbolic. That will never happen. Yesterday in LA, ICE agents decided that they wanted to interview kids who are in school. And then they lied to the kids and said, oh, no, we have permission from your parents. The school, thank God, Danielle, the school said, you stay outside. They called the parents. And guess what? The parents didn't give them permission. So Trump's law enforcement decided to go lie to the school and the kids and say, oh, we got permission to talk to you. And they were willing to pick up and deport these kids who were in school. That was yesterday in LA, and thank God the teachers stepped up and said no. This is what's happening, folks. They're going after third graders, but not the violent insurrectionists who stormed the Capitol. They got pardoned, and Donald Trump says, I'm open to seeing if we can compensate them.
And if you think that, again, this stops there, no, it doesn't. Social Security lists thousands of migrants as dead to prompt them to self-deport. By placing migrants in Social Security's death master file, the Trump administration is seeking to cut off their access to credit cards, bank accounts, and other financial services. It gets worse. The goal here, friends, is to cut those people off from using crucial financial services like bank accounts and credit cards, along with their access to government benefits, which they have legally earned.
Yep.
The effort hinges on a surprising new tactic. That's an interesting way to say fucking Nazi-like tactic.
Surprising, Danielle. It's very surprising.
Repurposing Social Security's death master file, which for years has been used to track dead people who should no longer receive benefits, to include the names of living people who the government believes should be treated as if they are dead. As a result of being added to the death database, they would be blacklisted from a coveted form of identity that allows them to make and more easily spend money.
Folks, I want you all to know what's happening. This has been the master plan of people like Jeff Sessions and Pat Buchanan. These are some deep cuts for the old timers. And Stephen Miller, the person who's running the show. It's Elon Musk and Stephen Miller, right? If you looked at Signalgate, which, by the way, is a huge deal, which should be in the news pretty much every day for the next 4 years, but isn't because, the economy is collapsing. The green light to go ahead with the military strike, that was most likely, Danielle, Stephen Miller. Why? Because Donald Trump is golfing. He did an entire golf tournament with his Saudi benefactors. He's completely checked out. He's also cruel, and this is part of his racism. But Stephen Miller, in particular, has had a fetish for recreating America into a white supremacist state. He loads the 1965 Immigration Nationality Act. Him and Steve Bannon, even though Stephen Miller is a bit more, considers that America can only be saved by restoring it to its white Christian identity. The book, folks, that Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller for the past 10 years have promoted openly, folks. This is the stuff that I'm so glad Danielle read that New York Times article. Surprising, isn't it? It's a novel. It's kind of, a lateral move. The book that both of these men, Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon, Danielle, have promoted to people, to reporters. You know what book you should read? They're like, what book? Camp of the Saints. What is Camp of the Saints? Camp of the Saints is a book written in the 1970s that is a favorite of white nationalists and white supremacists. The two books that white nationalists and white supremacists love are the Turner Diaries. Oh, that white nationalist manifesto that inspired Timothy McVeigh to do the worst domestic terrorist attack since before 9/11. And The Camp of the Saints. The Camp of the Saints is a novel written by a French racist that warns Danielle of what happens to Europe. What happens to Europe is that there is a mythical figure who rises, and he inspires the masses of brown individuals to overrun France. And it is a dystopian novel. That is the novel that Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon have promoted for years. And now, Danielle, are you surprised that once Donald Trump is elected, his right-hand man, Stephen Miller, is willing to burn down the economy? Immigrants pay money. Immigrants do the jobs no one else wants to do. Immigrants pay taxes. Undocumented immigrants paid nearly $1 trillion. What was it? Like $100 billion worth of taxes. If you attack immigrants, you destroy the economy in addition to cruelty. But he doesn't care, Danielle, because he thinks you and me are swarming and overrunning America. It's a surprising way of looking at the world. Sorry for my rant.
I think that what I want to make crystal clear, and I think that what you make crystal clear, is that what they are doing, the naming people as dead and taking away their financial access, the talks about people as packages and picking them up off of the street, the belief that this is just people who are undocumented. This is where it starts. It is not where it ends. And the fact that we opened up the show and we talk about briefly, the civil rights attorney, U.S. citizen who is detained for 90 minutes coming back from holiday with his family. Why? Because he is currently representing a Michigan student who is being charged with crimes for having protested. And why did they want his phone? Because they wanted confidential communications between him and his clients. These are things that they are doing now with folks that they think people don't care about. Yep. And then they will turn it on the rest of us. Because when Donald Trump is sitting in the White House and he is saying, you know what? I would like to look into sending American citizens to El Salvadorian prisons, right? Like, that is not he's having a sundown moment. No, it is a promise that he is making that anyone who objects to MAGA is going to be removed from this country, and he is going to label them a terrorist and a criminal and then kick them out. And, right? Oh, if it's legal, if it's not legal, who cares? That will be something to be decided later on when those people are trying desperately to get themselves back into the country. Namely, we can take a look at case in point right now. The Supreme Court did something, hold your breath, actually fucking useful to the American people, which is that a 9-0 Supreme Court upholds a court order requiring the Trump administration to bring a Maryland man, Kilmar Armando Arbego Garcia, back to the United States after mistakenly deporting him to El Salvador. Deadline TBD. The fact is, and I've said this before on the Danielle Moodie Show and here with Waj on Democracy-ish, the Trump administration acknowledged that this was a clerical error, a clerical error that has a human being in an Salvadorian torture prison, which Donald Trump is paying the president of El Salvador through our tax dollars to hold innocent people, which 60 Minutes came back and said that 75% of the people that are there are not criminals.
Yep.
In the over 200 that were brought on those planes. Nonetheless, this administration does not want this man to come back. And I will tell you my thoughts on why. It is because he will have a story to tell.
Yep.
About what is happening to these people, to these men in this El Salvadorian prison. He will have a story to tell. And every news outlet will want a microphone in that man's face to hear exactly what the fuck is going on. And this administration does not want that.
I agree. I think Trump is going to ignore the order. That's going to set up a constitutional crisis. I think the Supreme Court will allow him to run out the clock like they did on all of his criminal allegations, much like what happened with Gitmo. Remember Gitmo, folks? I haven't forgotten. I believe that this Trump administration will keep punting on this, stretching it out, at the very least, Danielle, until and if they ever leave. Abrego Garcia, folks, is a Maryland father, married to a citizen with a citizen kid who's 5 years old. In 2019, an immigration judge looked at all the facts and gave this man withholding of removal that allowed him to stay here legally, specifically saying that if Abrego Garcia went back to his home country of El Salvador, where he is in a prison right now, he faces threat of persecution. So that's why he is here legally for 5 years. 0 criminal charges, never been arrested. Only one eyewitness, who was a confidential informant, said, oh yeah, I think he's part of a gang. The judge looked at all these facts and said, how is it that this man was part of a gang in New York, even though he's never visited New York? Okay, I still give him withholding of removal. He was brown-skinned at the wrong place at the wrong time, like other men, brown-skinned with tattoos, Real Madrid tattoos, a rose tattoo like that gay barber who's innocent. There are innocent men right now. Of the 235, they said 75% no crimes, 22%, do the math, that's 97%, non-violent offenses, picked up, kidnapped. Let's just use the word kidnapped because that's what happened, Danielle. Kidnapped, no due process, shackled, put on a plane, sent all the way, like Danielle said, to El Salvador, where we're paying Nayib Bukele, the crypto wannabe dictator, $6 million of our money to house and torture these people. Individuals found out that their family members were kidnapped once they saw their faces on the news. So can you imagine you're waiting for your dad to get back home and you're like, it's been 12 hours. Where's dad? And you get a WhatsApp. I think we saw him on TV. I think he's in El Salvador. I just want you to all just sit with this for a second, right? And then, as Danielle said, this administration on its own admits we sent him as an administrative error. He shouldn't be there. J.D. Vance then lied to the American public. Remember that on Twitter? And now his lie was called out. He never apologized. All Donald Trump has to do is this. Nayib Bukele, I gave you $6 million. We made a mistake. I want you to fly on your private jet Garcia back home. Okay? Thanks. Bye. Click. The reason they don't do that, Danielle, is number one, Donald Trump refuses to apologize. It's the Roy Cohn method. Never apologize. Even when you clearly admit you're wrong. And number two, like you said, Danielle, I agree with you. If they bring back Garcia, he will have tales to tell. And remember Guantanamo Bay, folks? If you just keep them there long enough, the world will move on and forget that we detained innocent people for 20 years. And then they'll say, oh, yes, we should have been against that. Oh, well, sorry. You're right. I mean, that is such an egregious case that Mahmoud Khalil, Rumeysa Ozturk, going after
all of them. Like there are too many there at this point. At this point, and folks, we are but 80 some odd days into this administration. I just want to say that we have not reached 100 days yet.
82 days.
We are 82 days into this administration, and the names of those who have had their rights, their dignity, their freedom violated by this administration are too many to count at this point, are too many names to remember and list off. And the number will keep growing and growing and growing. So as we switch gears for a moment to turn to the economy and where we find ourselves, I just want to say that the reason why, Waj and I decided to do 2 days of democracy-ish on Monday and Friday to start and end the week is because we believe we need to reach more people. Yep. And if we can reach more people and have more conversations and people wake the fuck up, right, then we can actually take action against this government, right? Like, this is why we are doing this. As Waj and I say, and I'm just going to, say, this is why we call on and say, subscribe, support independent media. If you have not subscribed to this channel yet, do so right now. Because the amount of people who are trying their best to tell the truth at a time when the truth is being criminalized, when ideas are being criminalized, is when you need to double down. When folks say, what can I do? You can do the very low cost thing of hitting subscribe, liking, sharing, and reposting the work it is that we are putting out. Because when education and information becomes criminalized, it is your duty and your responsibility, right, to spread as much truth as possible to combat all of the fucking lies that are coming out. Okay.
And thank you to all the people who give the $1.99, the $2.99, the 99 cents. It goes such a long way. It's independent media. And Danielle has, I think, 22,000 subscribers. So she started from 0. And we now need to get her. The first milestone was 10,000, and then it was 15,000, and then she went from 15 to 22,000 real quick, like in a week. So now, folks, we have to get her to 25,000 subscribers.
All right. So where are we?
Oh, we're on the shitty economy.
We're here. So on Monday, Trump falsely claimed that egg prices are going down 79%. The man just throws out fucking numbers. Thank you so much. Throws out numbers that mean absolutely fucking nothing.
Eggs. So when I got in, the press went absolutely crazy the first week. They said, eggs have quadrupled in price. I said, I just got here. Tell me about it. And Brooke Rollins and our team did a great job, and eggs are down now 79%, and they're all over the place. And this was a problem.
Eggs are all over the place, Waj. Did you know? This fucking idiot. And so what's the truth? Where are we actually with eggs?
Look at that. Look at those numbers, folks. The prices of eggs increased after Donald Trump took office, and then they reached a record high. And then because he tried his best to, work with our allies, right, Danielle? He was able to reduce the price of eggs, but still they're higher at this point than any other point during the Biden administration. And in March, last month, the highest price of eggs ever recorded, which is why it was Danielle who informed me. And I'm like, what? Then I Googled it. I'm like, never doubt Danielle. Danielle was the one who told us. because it was so absurd. I'm like, maybe Danielle, maybe someone said it, maybe a Jamaican like family member sent it to her on WhatsApp. Like, I get all these interesting news threads from my Pakistani friends. I'm like, this is clearly fake news. But no, folks, people are resorting to painting potatoes in America for Easter because they cannot afford eggs. So a kid's going to come up to a family member and say, Mama, can I have this egg to paint so that the Easter bunny can come? And they're like, no, Mama and Baba need that egg. Take this potato. And then the kid's going to be like, why do I have a potato? Times are rough, kid. Times are rough.
Times are rough, kid. Times are rough. And speaking of rough, this week, again, not an economist, did not do well in math. I'm pretty sure that my high school math teacher wrote in my yearbook to, quote, do better, right? Like, was not my best. But I will tell you this, dear friends, that I know a little bit about math. And the little bit about math that I know is that tariffs are taxes for consumers, and that majority of our products come from where? China. So now Donald Trump has been playing a game of chicken with China, and guess who never fucking blinks? China. So now Donald Trump has, in the biggest insider trade fucking scam, he has decided now to pause on 75% of the tariffs to the 180 countries. But in the interim, and he says this, right? Telling people to buy in the dip, and all of a sudden the NASDAQ goes through the roof before he actually makes the official announcement. Just saying. Martha Stewart went to jail for less.
Yep.
Okay? But in that meantime, he has decided to up the ante with China, which again, look around your homes, folks, and see where everything is fucking made, to 145%. So who is this going to kill, Waj? Because it's not going to kill Amazon. It's not going to kill Walmart. Do you know who it's going to kill? Small business owners.
Yep.
Who have to front the tax and then figure out a way to make that coffee mug that you were going to buy for, let's say, $10 now be $30 in order to cover the cost. And guess who's not going to pay the $30 fucking dollars for the coffee mug?
I'm just gonna store up on potatoes. A quick recap, folks. Remember last week? Actually, not even last week. I feel like I'm living in the interstellar timeline where each minute is an hour. On Monday, no pause in the tariffs. No pause in the tariffs. No pause in the tariffs. As Danielle said Tuesday morning, randomly, Donald Trump on Truth Social, buy. We're like, what? Wait. 4 hours later, pause on tariffs. So yes, he veered off. In that little moment between his post and him reversing, there was a little spike of activity. And people are trying to figure out, what's that little spike? And some people are saying, we think people were tipped off that there was going to be a dip. Yeah, and a poop and scoop. Not even a pump and dump, a poop and scoop. And then Donald Trump, I don't know if you saw this clip, came out yesterday, just admits it. He's in the Oval Office. He points at Charles Schwab. Literally, Charles Schwab is there, and he points at the other guy who runs NASCAR, and he goes, he made $500 million. He made $1.5 billion. Literally admitting the crime. As Danielle said, that is insider trading. Pump and dump, poop and scoop, inflating the prices, insider trading, secret information. He's the president of the United States. So he blinked, he caved. Nobody made a deal, folks. Not a single country has made a deal. Not even China, EU, nobody blinked. Canada didn't blink. They're like, all right, mother effer, you go ahead and do this. We're going to wait it out. Now our allies, such as Japan and South Korea, are dealing with China. A report came out yesterday in New York that the world is looking to China as a stable economic business partner, right? Speaking about stability, why this matters. And I'm a simple English major, but even I know this. Nintendo, all right? Video games are a multi-billion-dollar industry. Danielle, Nintendo announced the release of their new console for the first time in 8 years. A big deal. The new Switch. Nintendo realized, okay, Donald Trump might win. And if Donald Trump wins, he's been fixated on China and tariffs. So you know what they did? They moved their manufacturing center from China to Vietnam. Why? Vietnam is an ally. Vietnam like literally has the most favorable terms with the United States of America. They're like, you know what? Even if there's a stupid trade war, we'll be safe. Guess what happened? Because it's Donald mother effing Trump. 145% tariffs on China, 10% tariffs on everyone else. We still don't know what this guy's going to do. When he came out with his original beer chart of tariffs, Vietnam, our ally that like literally does everything to help us, got hit with 46% tariffs. So Nintendo, that moved its warehouse from China to Vietnam, is like, we might have to like delay some of our pre-orders. That is why this is so bad, folks. We're not economists. Even we know. In a relationship, you want stability. You don't want volatility, especially in an economy when people are planning out the year ahead. How much do I want to buy? Do I want to engage with this person? Let me think of the tariffs. Will there be a recession? And this guy comes, throws his entire cabinet under the bus, right? Remember all these fools that came out?
Yep.
We're not going to pause. We're not going to pause. We're not going to pause. 4 hours later, I guess we're pausing. Isn't this man brilliant? The art of the deal. Oh, but guess what, China? Not you. 145%. We're going to go from 104% to 145%, which means the price of everything's going to go up. Be prepared to pay $2,000 for a freaking iPhone. And then I will say this, even now, folks, even with that small burst of activity late last night, Danielle, S&P went down, Dow went down, stock market went down, and guess who holds more bonds than China? Japan. Japan is selling U.S. bonds. The economy speaks its own language. When Japan and China start selling U.S. bonds, that means they don't have faith in the U.S. economy.
And just so, you know, to put a finer point on it, that
Danielle, tell them who
was
made that.
one of the biggest fucking trolls that is happening right now from the Chinese on fucking TikTok, where they are pumping out these videos of obese white Americans making all of the shit that they make. And guess what? We don't have the skills, we don't have the factories, we don't have the people that are going to do those jobs. And these are the videos that are being put out.
Not just, and can I say one more thing, Danielle? We've talked about it on the show. We don't have the will. Americans would rather die than pick a fruit or vegetable. In these Rust Belt counties where they're so anti-immigrant, they have done enough research there, and these white folks say, yeah, the immigrants, we want them out, but you know what? They do the jobs that we don't want to do. So instead, a lot of Americans, especially white Americans, would rather die of fentanyl overdose than literally go in the fields and pick fruits and vegetables, then be, I don't know, attendants to our elderly, then, I don't know, raise our children on the upper west side of New York, then, I don't know, be a line cook and cook all of our food, whether it's Chinese food, whether it's Vietnamese food, whether it's Indian food. They cook everything, folks. They would rather die than do this labor because that labor is beneath them. So who does all these jobs, Danielle? Who populates all these vacant Rust Belt counties where people are fleeing? Who brings in the business and the economy and spends their money? Who pays taxes even when they're undocumented and picking fruits and vegetables that white people eat that they'll never do because that job is beneath me? Immigrants. Do you think, can you go back to that clip? Can you in your life imagine a starving, poor white man in West Virginia ever do this. No.
I mean, it's just it's facts. And the thing is that we continue to pretend that Donald Trump is making America great, that he is going to, as bobblehead Barbie says every time she stands up in front of that podium, he is going to bring back jobs to America. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. And what no journalist asks in that White House press room is, what's the timeline? We don't have the factories. They've rusted out. What's the timeline for the education and the buildup of skills? You've got the Department of Education. Where are the people coming from? Where is the skill building coming from? Where are the factories coming from? What's the fucking timeline? And their response is always eventually.
Inshallah.
Right? And mainstream media lets them get away with it. But before we take off here today, folks, there was yet another major thing that happened this week that everyone needs to pay attention to right the fuck now, which is the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act, which would, as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez writes, House Republicans and 4 Democrats just passed a bill that would disenfranchise 70 million married American women. Under the SAVE Act, women who took their spouse's last name and don't have an updated passport or birth certificate would be turned away at the polls. This has already happened in states that have adopted this type of policy, which says that they are looking to eliminate non-citizens from voting. Once again, a hammer looking for a nail, because this is not a real problem. And there are already federal laws on the books that prevent this, and people will go to jail if you vote illegally. But what happens here is that you now have to provide documentation of your citizenship. What does that mean? That means that if you are going to vote, you need to bring your birth certificate to the polls. Okay, well, people have their birth certificates, yes. And guess what? 80% of women who get married change their last names to their partner's last names, which means what? That their names on their birth certificates do not match their driver's licenses. And then people will say, well, okay, bet. Just go and get a passport. Use your passport. Well, what I have learned is that 140 million Americans, nearly half of the American population, do not have passports. So not only is the SAVE Act going to disenfranchise up to 70 million American women, it will also disenfranchise trans people, non-binary people, young people, etc., etc. And guess what? Four fucking Democrats voted for this. And these are the Democrats who voted for the SAVE Act, which will disenfranchise tens of millions of people, including married women who changed their maiden name: Jared Golden, Mary Glusenkamp Perez, Henry Culler, and Ed Case.
Voter suppression. That's the Cliff Notes version of what Daniel said. It is shameless, bold-faced, times 96 Arial font voter suppression. And folks, Republicans have been trying this for almost 14 years. They tried this in Kansas in 2011, and it was struck down by a judge finally in 2018 because they could not find voter suppression. They've done the data, folks, of the voter fraud that, Republicans always talk about. Less than 1%. Less than 1%. Okay? This is just them trying to suppress the vote because they realize their ideas are deeply unpopular And if they can't win at the ballot, they'll suppress the vote, they'll stack the judiciary, and they'll have now an authoritarian leader in the form of Donald Trump. They tried it in Kansas. It failed in Kansas, but it was a test case. All of these are test cases, right? What can we get away with? Can we get away with deporting someone for a thought crime? Can we get away with punishing people that we don't like? Can we get away with kidnapping someone? Can we get away with voter suppression? Can we get away with a violent insurrection? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
So let's just go balls out. Case in point.
You know, and as we close out today, just to bring things back full circle
There you go.
into thought crimes, into weaponizing the government against those who do not think like you. Trump just signed an executive order asking the Department of Justice to investigate Chris Krebs, the former director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, for saying that the 2020 presidential election was the most secure election in American history. They are going to put this man through the ringer and try and throw him in jail for telling the truth.
White man.
Donald Trump has said this week that he couldn't have possibly, the election couldn't have possibly been fair in 2020 because all of these law firms are now throwing money at him. So he must have been right.
It's not just Chris Krebs, it's also Miles Taylor. Chris Krebs and Miles Taylor were part of the first Trump administration. These are white men. These are straight white men. These are conservative white men. They are citizens. Like Danielle mentioned, Chris Krebs, his crime was he did his job and said, yep, 2020, you lost, Donald. And Miles Taylor, who was part of the Department of Homeland Security, wrote that book as anonymous, talking about how incompetent and reckless Donald Trump was, and then came out in a New York Times op-ed, and Donald Trump did an executive order saying that he wants the Department of Justice to investigate these two men for treason. This is what happens in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, in China, in Russia, and Republicans who control the House and the Senate. You just need about 4 or 5 of them in the House and the Senate to stand up, and none of them do. They've all bent the knee because on the DL, they have told reporters, we're afraid to speak out against Donald Trump, not just because of Donald Trump, but because of the MAGA base. They have nurtured and created a monster that has escaped the lab and is now attacking all of us. The coup was complete, folks. Everyone says there'll be a coup. No, they won. This is now the Trump regime. And you have to resist the regime. And every form of resistance, every lawyer that refuses to bend the knee, every law firm that says F you, every elected official that makes a stink, every reporter who gets a chance, actually questions them with facts, people who stay dogged for the truth, people who speak out, people who organize, people who come out for the hands off march. All of it is like death by 1,000 cuts, right? That's what happens with fascism. It can't maintain itself. It can't sustain itself. You have to cut. Everyone wants the Avengers to come in one swoop like Thor, take it down. That's not going to happen, folks. That's not going to happen. This is a long walk, and we need all of us to sit there and do our part, right? Crack. Fascism leaks, and finally it explodes, right? So that's where we're at, folks. We did it to ourselves. This is America. We're in it for the long walk. Danielle and I are here. We've been here for 2 years now, Danielle.
I think
is that when you recruited me 2.5 years ago?
2.5 years ago.
We moved on to the YouTubes. We are independent media. We do everything from the grassroots. We take no dime from anyone else. Like fools, we have kept no paywalls. Everything is free because we believe democracy dies with paywalls. So we are dependent upon the kindness of strangers like Blanche Dubois. If you all can, please like this video. Please subscribe to Danielle. We were trying to get her to 25,000. And all the people who gave us a little bit of money, the super chatters. J-Mam, thank you. Jimmy, House of Jasmine, just saying with the 20, we need you. We need you. George Orwell, you're right, Barb. It's going to get worse. It's Orwellian. Thank you so much. We are trying our best, and we will hopefully be back next week.
On Monday, dear friends, 12 p.m. Eastern. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a paid subscriber on
Promote your
Substack.
Substack, Daniel.
So yes, my Substack is the Damn Digest. I'm very happy because it has been listed on Substack as one of the new bestsellers on Substack. So if you were looking for a way to support on a monthly basis, my Substack is a great way to do that. So head over there. And Waj and I are cooking up some little projects to go and do some videos, do some lives over on Substack. So we will keep you posted. Also, Waj's Substack is huge. The Left Hook. How many subscribers do you have? Like
It's
50,000.
I have like 50, I have 56,000. Everything's free. It sounds bigger than it is. Little by little, we build up. We got Danielle on finally. It's the lefthook.substack.com, and much like democracyish, no paywalls. You pay what you can. It's all reader supported, just like this show is viewer supported. So come by, subscribe. Really great chats and interviews recently. And then Danielle and I are gonna do some extra juicy stuff on Substack Live, which has its own robust community. It's fun.
Yeah. So, folks, we appreciate you. We will see you back here on Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern. Take care of yourself. Take care of your mental health. Be well. Be kind. Inshallah, we will be back then. And we appreciate you all. Have a fantastic weekend.